Welcome back to Alchemical Astrology. I'm your host, Melusine, with the November 8th Blood Moon Report. But before we find ourselves in the birth canal of the eclipse season, I wanted to make clear the distinction of the two luminaries in our system. That is to say, the sun and the moon. Most everyone with a cursory understanding of astrology knows the horoscopes in the digital magazines and newspapers refer solely to one's sun sign. Granted, that is a nod to the star that brings us life and sustains us. We in the West choreograph our entire lives around a solar calendar, but there is a huge portion of the population that is still fully in alignment with the lunar calendars and synchronize their actions in accordance with the moon's orbit. From an alchemical standpoint, the sun rules gold and the moon rules silver. Each has their part to play and importance in the transformative process. The sun is consistent and can be relied upon to rise in the east and set in the west on a daily basis. We can measure its trajectory by marking the shift in shadows on the ground. This is in fact how sundials came into existence as a means of measuring time before clocks were invented. The sun is a bright glowing force that brings us warmth and light by which to navigate during the day. But when we look up at the sky at night and examine the moon's appearance, she is never the same, perpetually waxing and waning, sometimes bright white, yellow, pink, rust-colored, and even red when in a total eclipse, hence the name blood moon. Luna represents our emotions, where our security lies, and our connection to the divine feminine. So much so that women naturally have their menstrual cycles align with the moon, and this is why in some cultures the term moon cycle is used for this monthly shedding. Planetary waters are also impacted, as any fisherman will tell you, while observing the ebb and flow of tides. To brush off the importance of the role of the moon in our mundane and personal lives is to do ourselves a great disservice. This is especially true during this eclipse phase because we are bearing witness to a paradigm shift unprecedented in human history, and how you manage this change will to a large extent be marked by these celestial guideposts. We are at the end of an era and moving into the age of Aquarius. History is being made, and the modern ruler of the sign of the water-bearer is Uranus. I will further explain why Uranus, considered by many as the higher octave of Mercury, factors heavily into this lunar eclipse. The question to ponder as we move towards this energetic reset when the lights are literally turned off on both the moon and Uranus simultaneously is, how do I handle change? Are you prepared to release what no longer serves, or are you driven by fear of the unknown and clinging to the familiar no matter how toxic the situation? Emotions drive the subconscious. Events can trigger feelings based on previous traumas, and this all falls within the lunar domain. All this is playing out on the world stage as the collective shadow is emerging from the underworld in order to be healed and purged, while the Sun, Venus, and Mercury are parked in Scorpio. As I mentioned in the solar eclipse report for October 25th, the energy here revolves around power shifts and formations of new alliances on the mundane level. With the moon in Taurus, our comfort levels will be challenged as emotions surface for cleansing. Those of you who have followed my reports over the last 8 months may recall my summary of the effects of the first eclipses on the Scorpio-Taurus axis in April-May of this year. On a mundane level, I mentioned Pakistan and Brazil being in direct path of the shadow, and at this moment there is civil unrest in both countries, the magnitude of which will have long-standing repercussions. In this final eclipse season of 2022, the total lunar eclipse will be carving a direct path through the Pacific at moonrise, hitting all of Japan, China, and Crimea, and casting the Pacific Northwest of America and all of Western Canada into shadow by moonset. Beijing, Tokyo, and Seoul could likely be in the news over the next 6 months. The full blood moon cresting at 16 degrees Taurus will pass through the Earth's shadow at 5:59 a.m. EST and remain eclipsed for 84 minutes. A total lunar eclipse will not occur again until March 14, 2025. The last lunar eclipse in this Saros 136 series occurred on October 28, 2004. So think back to that time and the early months of 2005 to catch sight of issues that are likely to be revisited. Thankfully, the second decan of Scorpio is ruled by the sun, so the way to enlightenment in the underworld will be paved in golden light. This eclipse is part of a series that falls in the 6 South classification, which was born under a Pluto-Mars opposition conjunct Venus on the Uranus lunar node midpoint. At the personal level, be prepared for some potential triggering when it comes to relationships and phantoms of the past, poking at your emotional scar tissue so you can revive and restore your heart to make way for healthier alternatives in your partnerships in the future. An additional factor that cannot be ignored is the occultation of Uranus by the moon, as she is in turn buried in the Earth's shadow. This is in fact a double eclipse, adding further potency to the volatility and intensity of the energetic interplay. Uranus is the planet of sudden shocking change and moments of genius. It breaks the rules and pushes boundaries. It rules communication at the global level, since it is part of the transpersonal planetary classifications, and as such raises the bar set by the personal planet Mercury. Both operate on the intellectual level of ideas, thoughts, and exchange of information, but Uranus takes the playground out into the cosmos. If Mercury was the Gutenberg press, then Uranus is the internet, and by extension, could it be laying the groundwork for telepathic communication by way of this reset? One thing you will have to prepare for is possible disruptions in the planetary electromagnetic grids and man-made satellite signals. Our own neural circuitry will be equally stressed while Mercury opposes its higher self during this lunation. So unplug often from technology and replenish your living battery by tapping into the Earth for grounding and anchoring, especially if your natal chart is ruled by Mercury or you have a stellium in Gemini. Turn away from media and turn inwards for inspiration and answers. Consider also that during the eclipse, Mercury is reaching its superior solar conjunction at 11:28 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This means it will be behind the sun, and as Venus did earlier, it will disappear from the sky to emerge as evening star in early December, further reinforcing the advice to look within when seeking solutions to restructuring thought processes. As you can see in the chart provided, we are also dealing with a T-square to Saturn in Aquarius, so brainstorming to arrive at new solutions to economic pressures and geopolitical tensions will likely be thwarted by those who are insistent on retaining their hold on power, status, and wealth. There will be upheaval and a change of guard amongst the big tech players, as is already playing out with Elon Musk taking over Twitter. Google and the metaverse are rapidly losing support, and mainstream legacy media is approaching extinction levels, but don't expect them to go gently into the night. Attempts to muzzle opposition or present false narratives to gain compliance will persist so long as Pluto remains in Capricorn until November 19, 2024. When Pluto last entered Aquarius, Americans rejected King George III's rule, and the end of slavery began. The U.S. is experiencing a Pluto return as we speak, and we'll see how freedom finds expression in this go-round. No matter where you are in the world, the solution to this tension in the fixed signs, further exacerbated by the karmic nodes, points to the sign of Leo. We must shine our lights in the darkest corners with an open heart and great courage. Remember, fortune favors the brave. You will need to dig deep, as there is also a Mars quincunx Pluto aspect to tackle, and this could lead to impulsive reactionary responses catalyzed by anger. Self-assertion does not equate to violence under any circumstances, unless one is acting in self-defense. From a physical standpoint, take care to monitor inflammatory flare-ups, reproductive disorders, and possible throat issues that may require medical intervention if unattended. The Sun in Scorpio is being straddled by two personal planets, one ruling the heart, Venus, and one ruling the head, Mercury. The life force that feeds both our thoughts and our passions is being mirrored by the luminary that represents our emotions and the populace as a whole. The moon is in Taurus, the sign of resources and value systems. Ruled by Venus, it points to where we draw the line on intimacy as it relates to our feeling safe and appreciated. Will you be required to establish new boundaries to ensure your needs are met and your sense of self-worth is acknowledged? With Uranus in the mix, this could be inspired by a sudden encounter that challenges your comfort levels when it comes to personal connections, or perhaps the return of a previous lover who triggers you into re-examining your attitudes towards meaningful one-on-one interaction. A retrograde Mars in Gemini squaring Neptune and Jupiter in Pisces could make conversations go sour, as deceit, scandal, gossip, and slander hit all lines of communication. Muckraking on the world stage via emerging alternative media platforms will gain a broader audience as facts come to light and are made public regarding politicians and world leaders. To further spice up this cosmic soup, we have the moon in proximity to the fixed star Menkar, in the mouth of the sea monster that was intending to devour Andromeda in Greek mythology. Cetus represents the human collective unconscious, additionally reinforcing the message I've just outlined. It is up to each of us to wade through these choppy waters and plumb their depths to gain insights into our deepest, darkest secrets, thereby lifting the burden for the whole of humanity. We can best do this by breaking the chains of servitude in the same way Andromeda was freed of her shackles by the hero Perseus. We must find the courage to slay our own demons. In the plant kingdom, we have the herb thyme, native to the woodlands of the Mediterranean, known by many as a spice for garnishing food and drinks. But the Roman soldiers wore sprigs on their uniforms to inspire courage. Knights preparing for battle would bathe in thyme and marjoram to boost their bravery quotient. This magnificent plant was also burned in temples and homes as a form of smudging to clear negative energies, especially when a family experienced a significant loss. The crystal, I feel, is best suited for this incredible opportunity to transform is the Shiva Lingam, only found in the Narmada River in West India. Lingam is Sanskrit for symbol, as the stones are an homage to the Lord Shiva. It stimulates the entire energetic system of the body, increasing pranic capacity. The shape is phallic, but the patterns within conjure egg-like qualities, the perfect balancing of masculine and feminine aspects. It is a material projection of the notion of unity and individuality, what I like to call cohesive individuation, which I believe is where our future as a species lies. And until we meet again, let's make our way towards cohesive individuation.